So, thank you, everyone. I see there are 5 or 6 people at Tushita, Delhi. So thank you, all of you. Can you hear me there, the people who are sitting at the back at Tushita? Can they hear me, Namita? Do you think? Can they hear me?
Yes, Kabir, it's clearly audible.
They can?
It's clear.
Have you asked them?
Yes, yes.
Okay, I'll try and speak loudly and project my voice. 1,000 kilometers to Delhi as the train goes. So today's topic, a very important one, and in one way, a very embarrassing one, because when one reads these teachings from Lama Zopa Rinpoche, he doesn't mix it with any kind of, he doesn't make it any easier. It's like medicine, bitter medicine, which is not mixed with a lot of sugar and stuff, to make it sound nice. We have medicine like that, which tastes so good, Like I remember child's toothpaste, it was banana flavored toothpaste, strawberry toothpaste, because otherwise the child doesn't want to hear it, use it. But here we have very direct teachings from Lama Zopa Rinpoche, who is, of course, spiritual director of Tushita, who we were hoping might visit this year, but doesn't seem like he'll visit the center this year. Let's see, maybe early next year, who knows? Anything can happen. Plans can change. Okay, so, already some people have left. Does that mean the topic is not amenable, or maybe 12 baj gaya to, yeah. So this is from a book which you can find in the Tushita library, How to Practice Dharma, teachings on the 8 worldly dharmas, often called the 8 worldly attitudes, 8 worldly feelings. Yeah, so here, the 8 worldly feelings, as many of you know, refer to our usual samsaric preoccupations. Preoccupations which here are divided into 4 sets, 4 pairs. The first is pleasure and pain. So meaning very, very all the time trying to find pleasure, experience pleasure, trying to avoid pain. That's the first duo, dyad. I learned this word dyad the other day. People who write scholarly articles, they use the word dyad. They don't like ordinary language. So dyad. Then we have the pair of gain and loss. Very much wanting to gain in all sorts of ways, in, out, whatever. And to avoid any kind of loss. So that even if one's football team loses, one is upset for the rest of the week, that kind of thing. But it refers to any kind of loss. Then there's the pair of praise and blame. Wanting praise, seeking for praise, however direct, however subtle, and then not wanting blame of any kind. Of course, even if one is totally deserves blame in a certain situation, we don't want blame. We hide from blame. We'll do even lie and so forth to avoid being blamed, And then the last 2 are good reputation and bad reputation. So we are addicted to getting a good reputation. We really care what other people think about us. We really want to be politically correct, usually, unless we're just showing off by being politically incorrect, which is, again, in any case, just ego. And yeah, we're very, very wanting not to be have a bad reputation, even if our behavior is awful, but we don't want it to leak out. We don't want people to find out. And we certainly don't want, therefore, to have any kind of bad reputation. So these 8, pleasure and pain, gain and loss, praise and blame, good reputation, bad reputation, these, if we are honest, govern our lives. I mean, we just have to look at pleasure and pain, how that one actually is kind of covering everything almost, because when there is praise, when there's good reputation, when there is gain, there's a kind of pleasure there, right? And when we have the opposites, there's pain, there's painful feeling, unpleasant feeling, either bodily or mental or both, yeah? So this is what we're meaning by when we talk of the worldly dharmas, 8 worldly dharmas, the worldly feelings, worldly attitudes. These are dominating our life, if we think about it even a little, I think, and are honest. So Rinpoche starts one chapter in this book, chapter 6, for your information, where he's talking about mixing worldly and holy dharma. So mixing the real, authentic teachings and practice with worldly practice, okay? Mixing the holy dharma with worldly dharma. And it reminds us of that very basic teaching, which is given, of the pots, the 3 pots, the one that's upside down, the one that has holes in it, and then the third one, if you remember, is the pot with poison, leftover food already in it, or poison in it. So whatever beautiful, wonderful, nourishing, healthy food you put on top of it, it's also going to get spoiled. It'll become poisonous by being mixed with the old stale food, which has all these bacteria in it or whatever. It can make us very sick or kill us. So here we have an example of that on a wider scale. So what does it mean? First of all, Rinpoche quotes one very great bodhisattva, Thome Zangpo, who was the author of the 37 practices of the bodhisattva. Some of you have studied. We've looked at verses from that also in our sessions sometimes. That great bodhisattva, who lived, I think, in the 13th century, he said, there is no greater hindrance to taking the holy dharma on the path to liberation than the evil thought that completely concentrates on obtaining the perfections of this life. Therefore, it's necessary to always avoid this, the perfections of this life. Of course, nowadays, given the rise of science, and most of us are, one way or another, accepting a lot of the scientific worldview, we don't feel that there's anything more than this one life. So we just have to focus, we think, on just getting this life together and having whatever perfections we can find in this life, which means what? As much pleasure, as much gain, as much praise, as much good reputation as we can muster in this one life, because that's all we have. And when we're dead, and then there's nothing, which is, of course, completely opposite to the authentic Dharma view, which is the continuity of consciousness, beginningless mind, endless mind, so that therefore those beings who only focus on this life, happiness, according to the traditional presentation of the stages of the path to enlightenment teachings, we're not even considered spiritual practitioners. However many, headstands we do, or mantras we recite, or organic food we eat, we are not Dharma practitioners if we are just thinking of this one life. So sorry about that. That's the traditional view. Of course, it's wonderful. It's necessary to be a good human being, to help people as much as possible. And you may have just one life believe in only one life, but you're a good human being, you help others, you do a lot to help others, that's wonderful. But in one sense, you won't have that kind of dharma vastness or perspective that is said to be embodied by the authentic Dharma practitioner, because they're thinking very long term. So you can see, if we're going to attain Buddhahood, to recognize and to, sustain, strengthen, and stabilize our Buddha nature, you can understand how that might take more than one life, right? These things take time. So, you see, according to the basic Dharma perspective, traditional one, there are many lives, and there is definitely time, if we use it skillfully, to totally manifest the Buddha nature, become enlightened. However, if we only believe in this life, then we'll only do what benefits us in this life. And we won't be thinking about the moment of death. We won't be thinking about, what's a good way to die? What's an unwholesome way to die? Because we won't bother. It's like, who cares if I get drunk and do stupid things before I go to sleep? That's the thought. If I sleep, then in the morning I'll be fine. Having that kind of ignorant understanding. Well, of course, as we know, if you've been to parties and had too much alcohol, you don't feel so great the next morning. So anyway, even if you have too much ice cream, like I had a very interesting, very rich ice cream at Muhammad's restaurant in Bodh Gaya last night. Of course, I shared it with other people, but still, it was a bit much. And I woke up feeling not very well. There's a little bit of a headache there. And this is what happens when I eat too much in the evening, especially sweet things after after dinner. So you see, without thought for the next day, one still engages in in these things. Yeah. And it was partly just a kind of curiosity to see what it was. Because it had a very strange name. I'd never seen a dessert with that name. It was called To the Queen. To the Queen. Can you imagine an ice cream like that? To the Queen. So I thought, very interesting. So if you go to Muhammad's restaurant in Bodh Gaya, you will find this. 180 rupees. Meal was being paid by somebody else, so I could afford to be that way. So To the Queen. It was very interesting, very tasty. Lots of lovely ingredients together. So you see, this I was looking for pleasure and gain. Well, not really gain weight or anything, but anyway, pleasure. And yeah, I got some pleasure, and I, pretended to be very generous by sharing it with other people, because it was much too much there for just the two of us who were there. And but anyway, as I said, this morning I didn't feel too good. But that's not the reason we delayed the morning session, by the way. Yeah, I didn't feel too good. And so I couldn't then enjoy the breakfast I was offered by somebody as much, because they were offering puri aloo. So I couldn't have puri. I didn't want to have puris on top of that. I just had roti and stuff. But I did have kheer. He had made kheer, so how could I avoid that in Bodh Gaya? So anyway, the point is, we are dominated, I'm dominated by this desire for dessert at the end of a meal. Goodness, you have a halo above your head, this person who's just joining. Okay, it's gone now. Yeah, so that's what happens. We are so caught up with the moment-to-moment pleasures, we don't think about the future, we don't care about the future. And in the process, we ruin our health. And of course, if we have poisonous mental attitudes, we're also ruining our mind. We are creating habitual patterns, which just keep on going on and on and on, getting stronger and stronger. This morning, I went to Root Institute to meet some people. And I met Geshe Tenzin Zopa, who's a wonderful monk who's leading a pilgrimage group. So I just had a little time to talk to him, and he told the story of this wandering ascetic monk that they met yesterday when they went on pilgrimage to Rajgir and Nalanda, which are wonderful places, not very far from Bodh Gaya, and very accessible now by good roads. So those of you who come to Bodh Gaya, which you must, you also visit Rajgir, Nalanda, Rajgir, where the Buddha taught famously the, or at least inspired the Heart Sutra to be spoken by Avalokiteshvar, and then the Nalanda, which, as you know, the greatest universities of all time, at least from the 2nd to the 11th centuries, 12th century. So anyway, they met this wandering ascetic monk who's from the high areas, the highlands of Nepal, actually, and not well known at all because he just maintains low profile. He was asked by the previous Karmapa, very high Lama in the Kagyu tradition. He was asked many years ago, before 1981, when the Karmapa died. Before then, he was asked by the Karmapa to travel to the West, that he should go to the West because he had great understanding of the very esoteric teachings of Buddhism, as well as the basic teachings. But he had very deep understanding of the esoteric inner teachings of Buddhism. So he wanted him to go. Karmapa wanted this Lama to go to the West to teach. The Lama, who was still quite young at that time, he said, "Look, I'm used to very simple life. I've been living in the mountains with very, very ordinary food and clothing and wandering around and being with the ordinary people, with the village people. And I don't want to go to the West, I don't want to do that. I'd rather stay here and help these people, because many of them at that time in Nepal were involved in animal sacrifices also, thinking that that was a spiritual practice. So he said, I want to stay in Nepal, and mainly in Nepal, and teach the local people, the families in Nepal. And that's what he's been doing all his life. Very simple, very ascetic, doesn't need any comforts, you see. Very simple food. And in the process of his life, and he's someone who does this very powerful purification practice of Avalokiteshvar called the Nyungne practice, which is 2 days of intense prayers and fasting and so forth. He made that practice very popular in many places in Nepal. And in the course of his work and teachings, he helped about 300,000 people to give up the practice of animal sacrifices and so forth. So you see, here we have someone who could have gone to the West. He was asked by a very high Lama, the highest Lama in his lineage. He was a Kagyu Lama, asked by the Karmapa to go to the West and teach. And he politely declined, saying, no, I think I'll be more beneficial here, you see. But he could have had, name and fame and a very comfortable place, and he would have been put on a throne. He would have had definitely a center by now, or more than one, where he could, have that kind of life. But he didn't want that. He wanted to stay with the simple folks and help them. They needed help. And he started many little centers of practice of this Avalokiteshvar purification practice, the Nyungne, fasting ritual of Avalokiteshvar, which was started by a nun, very famous, wonderful nun who had contracted leprosy and cured herself of leprosy through this practice in, I can't remember which century. But that's still a very important practice in the lineages of Tibetan Buddhism, the fasting practice of Nyungne, of the Buddha of compassion. So anyway, this is, if you read, one way to gain inspiration, by the way, especially when you sometimes feel bored or uninspired by reading about Dharma, or the Zoom sessions begin to make you sleepy, then what you need to do, you need to read some of the amazing biographies of the realized practitioners of the past. That can really be very inspiring. So Milarepa, Padampa Sangye, Marpa, Tilopa, Naropa, these kind of people, and many of our own lamas. If you read their biographies, you can get really inspired. Of course, there's the danger of thinking, oh, these are very highly realized people. How can I be like them? Blah, blah, blah. One could think like that. But then that's when we have to remember that we all have the Buddha nature. And through aspiration and practice and so forth, we can become exactly like them. Actually, we can become like them. Not culturally, but in terms of realization in the mind, we can achieve that. If we have a mind, then we can achieve Buddhahood. So it's not an excuse to say, oh, these people were great, they were blah, blah, blah. They were not always what they were. They were deluded like us at some point, And as Shantideva says somewhere in his text that, the Buddha has said that even ants and scorpions and flies can attain Buddhahood, by virtue of having a mind at some point in the future. So why are we making a fuss? We humans who have this amazing opportunity with the human nervous system and mind and body, why are we, complaining? We should exert effort in this matter and not be lazy, So anyway, that's just one thing. And not just the lives of these great beings. Ajir Vidya, who's also here with us, he loaned me a book on Western students who have approached and practiced the Dharma, most of them students of Lama Zopa Rinpoche, but not all of them. And how inspiring it is to read about the efforts that many Western students have made in their lives, what they have sacrificed, the hard work they have done, the practice they have done. So you see, people like us can also do it. It's very important not to become lazy and to think that this is only something for other special people and that I'm not a special person or something like that. If you have a mind, and I guess all of you here have a mind, then you have the Buddha nature, then we all have this potential to wake up completely. So there's no excuse. Yeah. So that's one thing. So why are we talking about the 8 worldly dharmas? Because it's the greatest hindrance to authentic dharma practice. We can't do anything properly if we are always distracted by these 8 worldly attitudes, can we? When we start, first of all, we will not sit down to meditate because we will be caught up in something else. An appointment here, a message there, something to tidy up there, something here, something there. There's a saying, which is very interesting. Chökyi Nyingma Rinpoche was mentioning it here the other day. That work does not get finished by being done. Worldly work does not get finished by being done. It gets finished by not being done. You get it? At some point, we have to avoid a lot of the worldly work because there is no end to worldly work. There is no end to the things you can get distracted with, which distract you from what? From sitting on your meditation cushion or chair. There are endless things, aren't there? Oh, I'll read this, I'll read that. That's also a Dharma book. Let me read that. Let me read this, which is connected to that. Oh, I have to do this. Let me go out and buy that. Oh, this is an interesting video someone has sent. Let me look at that. Oh, and I also need to do this. So endless tasks kind of thing that we set ourselves. One Dharma friend I have, this person spends a few hours in the evening getting up to date with the war in Ukraine. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing to do, but this person is someone who has Dharma commitments, like I do. And if we waste our time doing these kind of things, spending hours in the evening after a busy day, just keeping up with the war in Ukraine, I mean, how much do you want to keep up with the war in Ukraine? How is that helping? If it's really helping us develop compassion, bodhicitta, then maybe fine. But if it's just exhausting us and taking up time away from practice, then there's something wrong. But we're all doing this to some extent. At least some of us are. I am sometimes. So we honestly try to do virtuous things. I'm reading here from Rinpoche. We try to do virtuous things, listening to the teaching, studying, reflecting, or meditating, but somehow things never work out well because the thought of the 8 worldly dharmas always disturbs us. Here is the most delicious food, but it's tainted with poison. It looks enticing, but it's inedible. We have to throw it out. As long as our mind is under the control of the 8 worldly dharmas, everything we do is poisoned, and no matter how much we try to manipulate our external conditions and acquire material comfort, it doesn't stop the problem. In the same way that we cannot be healthy until we've flushed poison from our body, we can't really be happy until we flush the poison of the 8 worldly dharmas from our mind. So Dharma teachings are like a lamp which can dispel the darkness of ignorance, which prevents us from seeing things as they are. And so, however, even though we may know many words of the teachings and can explain them to others, still, somehow we don't practice, our mind does not become oneness with the Dharma. So even though we hold the lamp in our hand, it's like we still can't see through the darkness. It's as if we have eyes, but they're damaged in some ways by cataracts or something that makes us see 2 images when there's only one. So obscured from seeing reality by these 8 worldly feelings, we create all sorts of problems for ourselves and of course for others. Every negative action that we create brings us one step closer to the precipice of falling into the lower realms. Animal, pret, narak, narakvasi. Every negative action we do makes our appointment with the suffering of the lower realms more certain. As long as we fail to recognize and avoid this, our mind cannot become one with the Dharma. So if we are very accustomed to these 8 worldly dharmas, then our attachment becomes our best friend. Attachment doesn't want to be pacified. It's controlled by these 8 worldly feelings, and dharma itself, authentic dharma, becomes like a threat. We avoid it. So in this way, the thought of these 8 worldly feelings destroys the potential of this wonderful, precious human life. Sorry, these are tunes from the Chhat festival. I can't mute them out. If I mute them, I mute myself. Which is maybe a good idea. But... So, you see, if you also study the teachings on the precious human life, it's not like we just get a precious human life very easily, like we can go and get something precious in a shop if we have enough money. It's not that easy. To get a precious human life, we have to create amazing causes in previous lives, according to Buddha. Practice morality, being generous, made authentic, powerful prayers, and so forth. Then we get this kind of a human life, which is not an ordinary human life. It's not, we're not born starving in South Sudan or Somalia or in some, very backward part of India. We're not born there. We're born in a place where we are all fit and healthy and enough to practice, you know. We're not starving. We have, you know, we have the technology to join in sessions like this, so we can go to Tushita and hear Dharma. And this doesn't come around every lifetime by any means. So now we have this opportunity, then we waste it because of the eight worldly feelings. And this is the most utter waste of something that is most precious. Most precious. So of course, all of these teachings become more powerful if we bother to engage in those 4 basic meditations, which we keep on repeating we have to do. So let's have some discussion. And well, there's a lot more in this chapter, but I've mentioned the main points and given you a taste. Now I want to ask people, this is revision, what are the 4 basic meditations that we engage in, which can help authentically turn our mind towards the Dharma? Ashwin Bhai, I think you can mention one at least. So the 4 basic meditations.
The meditation on the precious human life.
Fantastic. Okay. You want to go ahead with more, or?
Maybe somebody else can try.
That's very generous, very generous. Shilpi, Divya, you've been around a long time in our sessions. What is another meditation that helps us to turn our mind towards the Dharma authentically? We've had
Maybe
precious...
focusing on your favorite deity in the mind, focusing on our favorite deity.
That's a very high practice. वो बाद में आता है. शुरू में क्या आता है? Deity आ सकता है, that's good, but that's not the answer to this question as such. Okay. Anybody else? Pradeep ji, with the orange wall behind you, can you answer this? Although you're not showing yourself right now. Okay, Pradeep ji is out of action. In and out of action. Haji, Pradeep ji, what's another meditation that helps turn our mind to the Dharma? Ashwin Bhai mentioned precious human life. There are 3 more. Can you mention one of them?
Thinking everyone is just like you, everyone is seeking happiness and not suffering.
This is the meditation which helps us develop love and compassion, but it's not one of the 4 what they call mind-turning meditations, which help turn the mind initially towards the Dharma. So I'm afraid I'll have to give you 0 out of 10 for that, although it's of course good. Of course, what you say is nice. It's not, you know, not the same category as hate speech or anything like that. But it's not the correct answer, sir. And Ajirji is making fun of you now.
No.
He's not.
Uncontrollably laughing. So maybe he has the answer. Ajirji, you can mention the second thing to reflect on.
Yeah, I think the Pradeep ji, being a journalist, he may be putting in his own way.
Yes.
The second one is impermanence, the death.
Very good, very good. Impermanence and death. This is said to be such a powerful meditation by those who have done it. It is said that if we really reflect on impermanence, how things are changing all the time, everything, all compounded phenomena changing. Your situation, your friends, your body, your life, your environment, everything, your government. Think how awful it is for people in England who want to have a stable government. 3 prime ministers in 3 months or something? Imagine how unhappy they are, but nothing stable. And then death comes in the end. How awful. What is the third mind-turning meditation? Somebody else.
Third.
Thank you, Aditi.
Okay.
I know that you know, or I think I know that you know. But how about somebody else? Minoti ji, hiding there in Gurgaon. Where is the third?
I don't know, Kabirji. I won't pretend
This
to
is
guess.
dreadful. This is really dreadful.
I know. Terrible, terrible.
Lucky your son is not here. I don't want to.
That's okay. I'm going to
dazzle
share
you
it
in
with
front
him
of the
anyway.
son. How come you don't know this? And you've done the master's program. Ye kya ho
No,
raha
no,
hai?
not done, Kabirji. Doing. Just started.
You passed the
आप
exam. You passed the
आपने पिछले
exam.
बार भी इनसे यही प्रश्न पूछा था.
अच्छा,
नहीं,
हाँ.
नहीं.
हाँ,
ये सवाल
पूछा
नहीं
था.
था अजीत जी, कुछ और
नहीं
था.
नहीं नहीं नहीं, दिस 4 का कबीर जी ने एक सेशन किया था.
This is
उसमें
what
जो है
people. This is
आपको
Dharma
3rd के बारे
debate.
में पूछा था, मुझे पक्का याद है.
नहीं अजीत जी, मुझे याद है कुछ और
पक्का
था. मैं
मीनोती
कबीर जी
जी.
को याद नहीं दिलाऊंगी. नहीं तो
Okay,
दोबारा
I think we have
पूछेंगे.
to go back to the record then.
Shanti,
Recording.
shanti, shanti. Otherwise, people will.
I know one.
This is how Buddhist people discuss the Dharma. Yes, no, yes. yes. So this is not authentic. But thank you. Whatever it is, Minoti ji, can you hazard a guess? You ask somebody to reflect on, someone you meet in the bus or on the train or on the aeroplane, and they say, oh, you're reading a Buddhist book. Are you a Buddhist? You say, yes. Okay, then they say, oh, I'm not really interested in Buddhism. I'm more into, gazing at a candle or, trying to levitate. So how will you get them interested in the Dharma? You'll say, look, you have a really precious human life. And then you'll say, you're going to die and everything is
So
changing. The
is
aeroplane
it
crash. What
is
would
it
you say
meditation on Kabirji? Would it be meditation on bodhicitta? How to evoke bodhicitta within you?
Okay, I'm banning you now from, I'm not going to ask you any more questions till you have mastered basics. Okay, you are banned. You are
I'm banned.
excommunicated for a few sessions. Okay, Nitya, you have the answer? Nitya, the new student, is going to teach us all. What is the third thing?
I think I remember it was mentioned in one of the sessions, the one on emptiness, the meditation on emptiness. Oh no!
It's my fault if these so-called people whom I'm so-called teaching on so-called Zoom can't remember these basic teachings. That's my fault. Okay, so now I'm gonna have to start using things like which I don't like using, PowerPoint and all this nonsense. People don't learn things unless it's on PowerPoint, Anyway, maybe someone at Tushita can tell us number 3. What would you reflect on? हाँ जी, आप क्यों उनको बोल रहे हैं? आप खुद बताइए ना सर, जो सामने बैठे हैं एकदम.
I'm just started with.
Huh?
Just started with stabilizing.
What do you mean just started? 8-10 बार आ चुके हैं, ये अभी तक नहीं पता. Anyway, goodness me, no one left to ask. Yogi is manifesting clear light. Okay, so Ajir ji, आपको बताना पड़ेगा.
Yeah, the third one is the law of causality.
Wonderful, sir, wonderful. And the fourth?
Fourth is suffering.
Wonderful. So why should we reflect on law of causality? How will that turn our mind towards the Dharma, sir?
Are you asking me?
Karam or karam ka phal. I can't ask anyone else. Everyone else is.
नहीं, अब बता दिया तो बता देंगे लोग. I think they have all got the clue. What is the causality?
मिनोती को तो excommunicate कर लिया है, तो और किससे पूछें? Okay, Nitya, what is so important about actions and consequences?
I think it makes you realize basically every action has a consequence, and what you.
So what?
So what you do in this life, you will either harvest or pay for in the next.
Well, it's good if I harvest good things, then it's great. if I plant good karmic seeds, I'll get a good harvest. So,
Yeah.
Okay. But more crucially, probably the teachings on karma help if we talk about, if we talk about unwholesome actions, the results of killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, harsh speech, and all of that. Might that also be a wake-up call for people if they hear about the consequences of those kind of actions according to Buddha?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, just the consequences of harsh speech would be, if one engages in a lot of harsh speech, then next life, we get married or something to a very rich person or very beautiful, handsome person, but then we realize that they use a lot of harsh speech. We have to hear a lot of harsh speech from our spouse or from whoever, from our children, from the people we work with, and then we ourselves have the habit of harsh speech, keep on using harsh speech, then it becomes very problematic, doesn't it? More and more suffering, more and more suffering. And then the consequences of killing and stealing are even worse, you could say. And the consequences of harmful thoughts, of greedy thoughts, and ignorance are dreadful. So yeah, karma. And then the fourth was mentioned, the teachings, the meditation on suffering of samsara. Okay, let's do some revision here. What are the three kinds, the three levels of suffering? What are the three levels of suffering? Because when we hear the word suffering, it means something in English, which doesn't convey the full range of what Lord Buddha means. So what does Lord Buddha mean by suffering? If you talk about it in terms of three levels, not just, birth, sickness, aging, death, not getting what you want, getting what you don't want. That, of course, is also another way to speak about it. Yogi, you've raised your hand. Are you answering this question?
आई एम नॉट आंसरिंग नमस्कार। सबसे पहले मेरी तबीयत बहुत खराब है और मैं कन्वर्सेशन में पार्टिसिपेट नहीं कर पाऊंगा। हाँ, मैं सिर्फ सुन रहा हूँ, आप लोग जो बातें कर रहे हैं वो मैं सब सुन रहा हूँ। मेरे साथ बहुत बड़ा एक्सीडेंट हो गया, मेरे घर में आग लग गई है, 10-12 लाख का नुकसान हो गया है। माय सन वाज नैरोली सर्व्ड बाय माय नेबर्स। फायर ब्रिगेड हैड कम और मैं बहुत सिचुएशन खराब है। मैं लोगों को अपना पेन शेयर करना नहीं चाहता। मैं अब बहुत दुखी हूँ अभी, तो मैं सुन रहा हूँ सब बड़ी मुश्किल से, फिर भी समय निकाल के सुन रहा हूँ। मेरा घर एकदम बर्बाद हो गया है। मेरा लड़के को मैंने हॉस्पिटल में डाल रखा है, उसको बर्निंग हो गई थी, नेबर्स ने बचाया था। हाँ, तो आप लोग प्रे कीजिए उसके लाइफ के लिए। प्लीज प्रे फॉर मी एंड माय सन।
करेंगे योगी जी। Very sorry to hear this. It's been for you one thing after another. I'm very sorry to hear this. It kind of shows us also the reality. We can read about things like this, but then it doesn't often happen to people we know. So I'm very sorry. I hope you're okay.
I have full trust, आप लोगों के प्रेयर से हम ओवरकम कर लेंगे सब।
Well, whatever. Also, one has to create, good causes. So you must pray also and have positive thoughts and so forth and create a lot of good karma, because according to Buddhism, what you've experienced is the result of negative karma, right? Do you accept that?
Yeah.
Does that help you, or does it just make you angry to hear that?
नहीं, हमको उससे हेल्प करता है। मैं प्रे करूंगा, मेरे कर्म से ही गए फल है।
Okay. Thank you, Yogi ji. I'm very sorry that you have this.
थैंक्स अ लॉट। आप लोगों के साथ में मैं सुन रहा था।
We will dedicate for you at the end of this session, for sure, for you and Saurabh. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, someone's hand is up at Tushita, Delhi. Somebody wants to say something? You may have to come near to the screen. Who is it at Tushita has put their hand up? किसने किया? Quickly, आ जाओ.
Kabir ji, one of the guests here was asking which hospital was
जोर से बोलिए please.
which hospital was his son in. योगी जी इसके बेटे किस अस्पताल में भर्ती है?
किस अस्पताल में? हाँ, what hospital is he in, Yogi ji? कौन से अस्पताल में है आपका बेटा?
He needs to unmute himself, Yogi ji.
हाँ, yeah. Unmute करके बोलिए.
पहले इंदिरा गांधी हॉस्पिटल सेक्टर 9 द्वारका में इमरजेंसी में डाला था। इमरजेंसी में डाला था, उन्होंने रिफर कर दिया कि यहाँ नहीं होगा, आप ले जाइए दूसरे जगह, तो नोएडा ले गए।
अब कहाँ हैं?
अभी नोएडा में किसी अस्पताल में है, मुझको बताया नहीं गया है। मेरे सन इन लॉ ने अपने आदमी भेज के मंगवाए थे।
अच्छा, ठीक है. Anyway, okay, thank you. Okay, more hands are up. Whose hand is up now? Minoti ji, okay, we'll allow you to ask a question.
Thank you, Kabir ji. If I may redeem myself.
Yeah, forgiveness is a great quality. Yeah.
Thank you. So I think the three kinds of sufferings are suffering of suffering, suffering
You
of
think?
change.
You
No,
think?
I know.
Good.
Suffering of suffering, suffering of change, and all pervasive suffering.
That's easy to say. Now you have to explain what they are.
I knew you were going to catch me on this one.
Of course, you can't just, roll it out like,
I know.
like the
So,
news.
to explain suffering of suffering, I think this is something that we are kind of all familiar with. Suffering of birth, of old age, sickness, suffering of death.
I mean, the sufferings that Yogi ji just mentioned, that is suffering of suffering, right?
Absolutely.
If it happened to us, we would be very clear that it's suffering.
Yes, absolutely. Suffering of change is when we get what we want, but we're not able to hold on to it because it's impermanent. And it's like Shila also gives this example always of the cheesecake. That, we get a cheesecake, we get attracted to it, and then we eat more and more, but it keeps getting over, and then we keep desiring it.
Yes.
So that is the suffering of change, of impermanence.
Yes. And why is that a very dangerous one, that suffering of change?
Because it gives us the illusion that it's going to give us happiness. And
Right.
so there's an illusion there, and therefore it is dangerous.
Right.
And the suffering, all pervasive suffering, would be a more subtler one, which we may not recognize.
What's the definition of it? What's the definition of suffering, of all pervasive suffering?
Definition, I wouldn't know, Kabirji. I know an understanding of it. I'm not very good with definitions.
I see.
But could it be the all pervasive, that is, the general background of anxiety, insecurity that we are surrounded with?
Not really, although that's a part of it, but it's not the definition of it.
Okay.
Maybe Ajirji, do you know the definition of all pervasive suffering? We're having a lot of interference. I don't know why. Maybe people who are not talking can turn off their, can go on mute. योगी अपने को म्यूट कीजिए, हो सकता है वहां से भी कुछ हो रहा हो. Can you mute yourself, Yogi, from that end? Whoever's not talking.
वो इसका आखिरी दिन है, तो आज नहीं आ पाएगा, काम खत्म करके कल से
Okay, I'll have to.
बोला है उसने बोला
Okay. Yeah, what were you saying? I was asking Ajirji, wasn't it? Yes. Can you define all pervasive suffering? No. Okay. To save time, all pervasive suffering is the continuity of the aggregates of body and mind, which are tainted, contaminated by delusion and karma. The point being that so long as we have these aggregates, body, mind, yeah, basically, and they are polluted, they are tainted contaminated at the source by delusion and karma, so they are going to attract all manner of suffering by virtue of what they are. It's like if you have, I don't know, if you have jalebi, sticky jalebi out in the street in a dirty part of town, it will attract flies, you see. It will, that's just its nature. So if we have these contaminated aggregates powered by delusion and karma, that is the source of all of our suffering. That is, all of our suffering is somehow included within that. So that's what that means, basically. Yeah. Yes, thank you. Yeah. Another question, is it from Tushita Delhi? Hands up. Or else you can put the hand down if there's no.
No questions.
Okay. Yeah. Do you have a question related to this, Yogi? No? Okay. Anybody else want to mention anything? It's getting close to 1 o'clock, which is lunchtime here at the Burmese Vihar. And then we are going out with the students to make offerings to local people, local poor people. And then Rinpoche is giving some teachings at the main temple in Bodh Gaya. Yeah, and I'm sorry I forgot to ask about Zooming it, but I presume they were not photographed. There were no cameras the last 3 days, so it hasn't been Zoomed, that I know. They're not planning to do that. Any other points people want to make? Now's your chance. We can go on another 5-10 minutes.
Kabirji, we have one question here.
Yeah.
सर मैं फर्स्ट टाइम आया हूं सर और जो
You will have to repeat it because it's probably inaudible here.
सर फर्स्ट टाइम यहां पर आया हूं
I can't hear it. Come right up to the microphone and speak loudly, sir.
सर मैं फर्स्ट टाइम आया हूं सर और सेंटर आई हैव सीन थ्रू द वेबसाइट सर एंड आई वांट टू लर्न अबाउट द मेडिटेशन सर
Yes, good.
यस
Well, in 5 minutes I can't teach you, but I can just advise you to come again and again to Tushita.
यस
That's why we are here or there. And 8 बजे सुबह Monday to Friday वो थोड़ा meditation होता है. 8 या 8:30? 8 बजे. 8 बजे हो रहा है. ये नमिता है ना, ये she's leading the morning meditations for half an hour. तो आप कुछ सीख सकते हैं वहाँ. और फिर मैं भी लौट रहा हूँ दिल्ली. जब मैं लौटूंगा तो सेशन में आइए, तो वहाँ भी सीख सकते हैं. Yeah. Good. Thank you. Thank you, Divya. Thank you, whoever has to leave. Anything else?
Thank you, sir. Kabirji, thank you.
Thank you, Kabirji.
We are waiting here for you.
Sudeep ji, don't be sad. Your answer was excellent, but it was just the wrong answer. No problem. It's your.
No, I'm not sad.
आपका बोधिचित, आपका दिमाग हमेशा करुणा पर चिपका हुआ है तो बहुत अच्छी बात है.
No, I should have known. I somehow.
Those four are kind of like wake-up calls, you know. Precious human life, it makes us, wow, yeah, what an opportunity. Then death and impermanence, wow, it's going to change, I'm going to die. So then you feel, oh, you know. Then karma, wow, I have to be careful how I act because a lot of my actions are just going to throw me into suffering again and again and again. And then, of course, the teachings on suffering, they wake us up. Okay, wow, this is how it is, you know. And all these things I think of as pleasure and good, they're actually not in the nature of lasting happiness. They are also another kind of unsatisfactoriness. So then if one really thinks about these four, they are a very skillful way of waking us up and saying, wow, so there's really nothing to be done in life. If I want to be really lastingly happy, there's nothing to be done except to practice the Dharma. There's nothing else. There's no other medicine can cure the sickness of ignorance and so forth. Only the Dharma medicine. So then that's why they call the four mind changings, because they really can change the mind, turn the mind towards the Dharma. So look, we have to stop now. I'm very grateful to all of you for joining. And we have a session tomorrow, 6:30. Tomorrow, 6:30. That will be the what is it? Tomorrow's the 31st. Yes, Monday, 31st, 6:30 p.m. We will continue with this topic of how to practice Dharma through seeing clearly the nature of the 8 worldly feelings, how they disturb us. Okay, so let's dedicate this time that for Yogi and his son Saurabh, and for all of the suffering they are going through. May that suffering come to an end. Realizing it is just one suffering in the vast pit of samsaric suffering that we are all in, jail of samsara, which often looks very attractive on the surface, but is very deceptive, like honey smeared on a razor's edge. Like sort of poison, which is mixed with something very delicious, which looks very tasty and appealing, but it's going to kill us. So may we be free of that. May we always be connected with authentic teachings and teachers. May all the authentic teachers have long and healthy lives. And may always have trust, faith, and devotion in our kind, in our spiritual masters, through whose kindness we develop. Please play also for Vimla Tomar, Vishad's auntie, who passed away a few weeks ago. And for all the other people you know who are suffering, maybe close to death, who have recently died, please pray for them. Thank you all very much. I hope to see some of you tomorrow at 6:30. Have a good day.